the last major part of our profile page that we haven't built out yet is this row that consists of a couple of buttons that enables us to toggle how we want to see the user's posts, as a grid or as a list. So obviously when a user presses on the grid button, they'll see it as a grid, as a list, they'll see the posts as a list of posts. And we've created within build profile posts both of those views. So first, let's create the appearance of this. First by adding within the list view widget of our profile page, first a divider underneath our header, and this row is going to be provided as the return value of a new function which we'll call build toggle post orientation. So we'll make this, as I mentioned, it'll return a single row where to space out the children evenly, we'll set main axis alignment to main axis alignment dot space evenly. Then for its children, we'll first have an icon button where its icon will be icons dot grid on, and its color will be our primary color. So theme dot of context primary color. Then for the next button, that will be the icons.list, and we'll make this color, the color of this icon button, gray from colors.gray. Now let's save this and take a look at what we have. So this is good. We have our two buttons. However, now to make them functional, when we tap on one or the other, we need to change the view. And to do that, we can add a simple conditional within build profile posts. And that conditional is going to be based off of a new state value. We'll create a string variable called post orientation, and for its initial value we want to set the orientation to either grid or list. So by default I want my post to be viewed as a grid to see as many as possible. And then heading back down to build profile posts, we can add an else if after is loading, and if our stored post orientation is equal to grid, the string grid, then we want to naturally return our grid view that we've created. Otherwise, else if post orientation is equal to list, then we'll return our column of posts. Pretty straightforward. Now for our icon button, we want their on pressed, when the button's pressed, to call a function to set the value and state to toggle between grid or list. So this function will be called set post orientation. It'll accept a string of either grid or list. We'll call that post orientation, and it'll simply set state where this dot post orientation is the post orientation value that we passed in. So for the on pressed, for our grid button, in the return this inline arrow function, we'll call set post orientation, pass through the string grid, and for our list button, we'll pass through the string list. Now when we save, we should be able to toggle between each of the views, and we can, so that's good. However, just the grid button has a primary color, and the way we're going to use this color is to indicate what button is active. So we want this either button to turn our primary color when it's selected. So we're going to need to add a ternary for the color values for both of the icon buttons, where for the grid button, if post orientation is equal to grid, then we'll use the primary color. Otherwise, gray. And we can copy this And for the list button, if post orientation is list, then it'll be primary, otherwise gray in that case. So now when we see our list of posts, the list button is active, and when we have our grid of posts, the grid button's active.